John, your reaction when you saw the Raiders cut Rodney Hudson?
John Gruden's crazy.
Shocked. I'm Guy. That's John Middlecoff. And this is our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it and give this video a like.
Podcast below in the description. A lot of free agency talk. Go subscribe right now.
Yeah, as of this recording, we're waiting for like the ace up the sleeve. I think because that was everybody's reaction was, wait, what? Rodney Hudson, one of the best centers in the league, on an offensive line that's already got a lot of changes, and you're not really saving any money, we don't think. What's going on here?
According to the Twitter accountants, they actually lose money because the dead cap was bigger than the cap hit. The cap hit was like 13. The dead cap's 15. They can earmark it. To me, regardless.
He had some cash due apparently this week, tomorrow.
Yeah, Rodney is easily one of their better players and one of the better centers, like you said, in the NFL. He's just a very, very good offensive lineman. If he would have been a free agent in this class, is it fair to say he would have been signed immediately on Monday? Like he would have had a contract with someone?
Yeah. Yep.
I think he would have been signed at one of those 3 years, like $50 million, 25-30 guaranteed type deal. Lindsley, the center from the Packers, got pretty good money to go to the Chargers. Like, I think the Chargers would have probably signed him. I'd rather have Rodney Hudson than him. It is alarming. And I did some digging. A couple things that I heard is that Rodney Hudson, and we knew this, Rodney, since you and I were around the Raiders, Gabe Jackson and Derek, they've been really close, right? Those guys, I think, have been married since, gone to each other's weddings. Maybe Rodney already was, but definitely Gabe has and Derek has. Kids, I mean, they hang out. I don't think he was happy about the Gabe Jackson release. Now, Gabe, in a weird way, has been like rumored to be released or cut or traded several times the last couple of years, right? His name is kind of floated out there as like to clear cap space. So it to me, that didn't come out of nowhere, but that doesn't mean he didn't take it personally. I also heard is that in a weird, like he can be a curmudgeon in a way that I think sometimes he'd been there 6 years. They don't win a lot. He's a Pro Bowl high-level player. He's a really high character guy. I know the Chiefs, when the Raiders signed him, they loved him. Obviously, Del Rio and Derek love the guy. I just wonder if Gruden can kind of wear some people out, if that's not what you're used to coaching style, and Rodney wasn't really into it. Now, there's some reports that he asked for his way out. There have been other reports that the Raiders didn't want to give the cash.
Well,
the $3.3 million in cash.
Tafer wrote, I'm just reading it now, that Hudson said he'd be willing to void the $3.5 million guarantee that kicked in last month if he was released. John Gruden said yes rather quickly, as first reported by Mark Sanchez.
That's pretty nuts. That's pretty crazy.
The Raiders saved $9.9 million in cash.
Yeah, and then there were several people that follow the NFL that were basically saying, like, that's a big deal to the Raiders. And I think that's the elephant in the room. Listen, I used to say that all the time when they were in Oakland. I know things have changed, but this year was unique in the sense they didn't get to sell those suites and those seats, right? I don't think, listen, people have been calling me a Raider hater for years. I don't necessarily think this was purely money-driven. I think this is more Gruden, impulsive, a crazy SOB. That Rodney, a little negative. Obviously, if you're Gruden, the offensive coordinator, who are you dealing with the most? The quarterback and center, probably, right? You're just around that environment, those guys a lot. Gruden could sour on his personality. Rodney can sour on his personality. People just grow apart. When you're paying a guy a lot of money, maybe you're just like, fuck it, let's just go our separate ways. A couple texts I got today, though, were like, I don't give a shit if Rodney wants out. In pro sports, you don't just, okay, best player, see you later. Like, that's bad business. Like, that's just stupid. They could have traded this guy within the last month. Jared Goff got traded. You don't think you could have traded Rodney Hudson? This to me, I mean, some diehard people in the loop that are diehard Raider fans that are kind of in the loop that are also like media people of like, this is Gruden. Like, you can't just, like, okay, let's all take a deep breath and just talk this out. Like, this is Sean Payton's, the Andy Reid's, the Pete Carroll's. Like, the moment Russell Wilson starts going AWOL, Pete Carroll doesn't go like, fucking get rid of him. You just take some time, take a deep breath. Even if you end up getting rid of him, the herky-jerky nature of John Gruden is 100% not disputable at this point now, right?
Right. I would imagine we'll hear some over the next few days. One thing is the Raiders really like their rookie or their second-year center, Andre James. Well, yeah, if you liked him enough to make him your starting center, let's rewind. Then you trade Rodney Hudson a month ago or whatever the case is, right? I would imagine we'll hear some of that. And
I think it's fair to say that Rodney Hudson might have got at least a third. I mean, maybe like a conditional second.
But that's if you like this guy enough to replace Rodney Hudson. There's no evidence that they like this guy enough to just replace Rodney Hudson because Rodney Hudson, it's not like his idea.
Well, so there's no chance this guy's as good as Rodney Hudson. Guys.
No. So you just had Derek Carr. You just took a big step. Like we just ended the offseason going, the good news is you kind of got your offense in order. Now you focus on your defense. And then you got to go back to you're down now maybe you're back to the offense again, and the defense still.
Well, how many starting offensive linemen from 2020 are on the team right now?
Well, Colton Miller,
1. Last time I checked, there are 5 offensive linemen. If I told you an NBA team had just had a really good season, and I'm like, well, they only have 1 starter of the 5 back. Like that's a big deal for a unit that Gabe Jackson, Rodney Hudson have been really good. And Trent Brown, I had no issue with them trading Trent Brown or cutting Richie Incognito. I probably am keeping Gabe or Rodney Hudson. Now, I originally think maybe they're setting up to do a Russell Wilson deal. Do a little digging. Yeah, I don't think that's the case. Because what else can you think? Like, why are you cutting this guy? My conspiracy was like, maybe they're cutting him so he can go to Seattle and meet Derek because they're like best friends. And then Seattle gets an extra offensive lineman. It's like doing them a favor. It's already like – I've heard that's not the deal. It was just
you've heard that what you just described is not the deal. The 9-step move.
that was I never even asked because that's clear. Once I heard Russell Wilson's not coming here, it's crazy, guy. It to me is just John Gruden's consistency of not being a consistent individual. I think the hardest thing, and it probably I've really only worked in football at a radio station and in podcasting. But I think I would imagine people in finance, people in different companies that sell, obviously in football, if you're a leader, and I mean the true boss. And the thing with the NFL was I bet many people listening work for big companies. You don't see your CEO every day. Like if you work for the Raiders, coach, scout, sales, like you probably see John walking around like the CEO walks into the building every day. If he's all over the map, how is everyone not all over the map? Right? Like there's one thing like I've always heard from people that have worked for Belichick or worked for Saban, like, you got to be on your toes, but not on your toes because you never know the curveball's coming. What I was told about Saban, if you work for him for 2 years, if in that first year, every day you take notes, you'll know what's coming next year every day because he's so consistent. Like what happens February 12th is what happens February 12th every year. Like he has a plan. Belichick, same thing. Belichick's big deal is like details, like don't screw it up. It's never like all of a sudden doing crazy shit to like they just cut Gronkowski. It's like no, he doesn't do that. With John, at any moment, people always said this. I think when he came back, like get ready, anything could happen. I don't think most people believed it. And then Mack was traded and Amari was traded, and people still started started to believe it. But even now, a couple years later, like when I tweet out like keep an eye on Russell Wilson, people are like Middlecoff, you're crazy. How can I be crazy? This guy's liable to do anything.
His own brothers.
How can Derek Carr feel, and you could argue he doesn't deserve to feel like stability is the wrong word, but
safe on scholarship.
Safe. Yeah, on scholarship. Like he has to be on his toes, right now, right?
I guess technically Gabe Jackson's still on the Raiders roster, by the way.
So they haven't cut Gabe. Well, I was told he's done. But.
I know that's what's been. Josina reported that 2 weeks ago. But Tafer wrote that he's technically still trying to squeeze him or something like that.
Like they're trying to get
maybe Raider post. I still read a post. Yeah. So it's very much in flux.
It's just very like I just think today is very it just represents John Gruden. Not his Raiders tenure, not just that this is John Gruden. It's who he was in Oakland. It's who he was with Tampa. He didn't have to be anything on Monday Night Football. He could just be his personality. But like him as a coach is all over the map. And one thing's clear, since he got traded to Tampa and no longer he was the boss and Al Davis didn't come, obviously like he was the GM in Oakland. And since he came back to the Raiders, He answers to nobody, and whatever the fuck he wants to do at any moment's notice, he will do. Why? Because he clearly has the power to do whatever he wants. Like rare power. Kyle Shanahan couldn't just cut George Kittle today because he wanted to. Over like, well, are you really mad at him? No, I just get him out of here. Like there would be people to talk him out of it. I think it's fair to say there is zero people to talk John Gruden out of anything that is borderline doesn't make sense. He will do what he wants to do. He's proving that every day.
I would say
it's not a good thing.
A coach that wins the Super Bowl with that type of personality, usually, my guess, this is just a theory, does it early in their tenure. Like you can win
a study.
He's won a championship. Yeah, he's won a champion. You know, it's hard to do a study because you're like trying to categorize personality, but that if you get to year 4, year 5, year 6 with a coach that is kind of a roller coaster, it's too late to really have great success. Right? You can do it early, but organizationally, it's just hard over time. That's just not going to work because you're going to have a situation like a Rodney Hudson situation where you've got a consistent centerpiece of your franchise who has had enough.
I think the craziest part about John is that the wealth, his safety and stability with the job, he doesn't have to worry about getting fired. His age, right? He's gained a bunch of years since the 2003 when he won the Super Bowl. I don't think none of it factors into like his quote unquote football maturity at all. I bet if I don't know if anyone technically is around him right now that was around him in like 98, 99, but I think it's fair to say a lot of his similarities. Like I bet Andy Reid or Sean Payton would say, yeah, I'm dramatically different than I was 10 years ago. Right. Or yes. I think you even hear Saban talk, like it's easier for me to like get through problems and I don't get caught up in everything. It's like any human being. Like don't you notice it? Like every 5 years of your life, you're like, God, I feel a lot more mature about. I feel like John Gruden is just as fucking crazy, which is cool. You know, it's entertaining to talk about, but to run a team and give him that type power, the volatility for a team that wasn't that good that he took over, or just had some maneuvers that have to be made. It's not like he took over a great roster, and clearly it feels like he takes a step forward, then he takes a couple back, and the boat just always rocks.
What's kind of crazy is that the personality of his Raiders, like his coaching personality, does not match how they draft. Like they draft as if they think that they're just a really stable. It's not about taking the big swing. It's about just churning along, building bricks, one step in front of the other, blah, blah, right? Like that's how they draft. Cleveland Ferrell, not a high ceiling guy, but they thought stable, good college experience. Josh Jacobs, stable. He's not a high end guy, but this is just Damon Arnett, stable. Consistently. Jonathan Abrams, stable, hard hitter. This is just, we're going to do the basics. But they don't play that way. Like they don't operate.
Trayvon Mullen, starter at Clemson, like clearly.
Yeah, they're not drafting like all these Aldon Smiths. Like you would think, Aldon was this big project. I didn't even mean Aldon as a pro. I just mean like
Lynn Bowden, and he got shipped out fast.
Ruggs, you could argue maybe it's that, but I think a lot of people thought Ruggs might be the best receiver. I don't know. It's just to me that it's almost like they think of themselves as like straight ahead. We're just going to pound the pavement, but then they don't. I don't know. The stuff doesn't match.
Well, guy, because back to what I was saying, when you're impulsive, and I think any human being listening to this knows. Like I know this. I still am impatient, but I do feel just for my own personal belief that I'm way less impatient than I was like 5 years ago. And I've always heard people say this: as you get older, it helps you to like you can have perspective on things, and you're not always rushing. It feels like they are when you're impatient. Sometimes there's no rhyme or reason because you're just not thinking clearly. And I feel like Gruden doesn't always think clearly. Like he has some good ideas, and then his like impulse takes him over, and then he's like in left field, and then he's back to third base, and then all of a sudden he's in center field. It's like, John, just fucking take a deep breath.
This is part of the risk of a coach being in charge of personnel.
But I even think he's on the high end of pretty nuts.
I agree. But where's the check in the back? I mean, you would think Mayock wouldn't, be susceptible to the roller coaster, but ultimately he's not in charge.
Well, and the thing is like, well, I'm high stress, I'm high going. What isn't every coach? Like I watched something on Urban Meyer. It just feels like Urban's a little bit more of a flatliner just with the everyday operation of the program. Like I think Gruden thinks it through, like in theory of what is the right ways. I've been around Saban. I went to hang out with Belichick when I was at FFCA. I think he has all these great ideas. I don't think he's good enough. Good enough's the wrong word. I don't think he's patient enough to see a lot of them through. And then I also think the wrong word, like words now, back to myself, and I'm not comparing myself to Gruden, but back in the day, a word could trigger me fast. And for the most part, I feel like I'm pretty okay. I'm not going to go fly off the handle. It feels like Gruden at 55.
Baldy.
Yeah, something can set him off.
That wasn't the word?
No. I don't even mean a word. I just mean like, it is, as you get older,
I know.
you should be able to, like,
But
a guy
this-
saying, screw you, trade me, shouldn't set you off. Like, hey, just take a deep breath.
Yeah. But maybe this one wasn't just screw you, trade me, right? Maybe this one's been kind of.
I don't even mean screw you, trade me. I just mean.
No, I know. What I'm saying is
John
maybe
ever
this
just
was
go,
not a.
Hey,
my
can we
guess
take
is,
5 days to relax?
but maybe this was not a moment. Maybe this has been several months in the making. Which again, if it was, then deal with it, fix it.
Well, they handled it poorly then.
Fix it could be traded, but cut him, lose the grid center and money.
John needs to take some like pills to chill him out. The doctors give those out.